getting more and more into it, or are you getting more and more kind of like, okay, I need to slow down a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. I don't know. My first couple of years into this field were the most obsessive that I've probably had my whole life. But I think that's normal. So it's like when you get this new reality, you go through your life, right? And you think, I've got things kind of figured out. I'm ahead of the curve. And then suddenly, boom, whammo, this new thing enters your life. And you are thinking, holy shit, my whole paradigm is wrong. So what I remember spending the first year, almost many, many evenings, in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out my worldview. It wasn't like a stressful thing. It was just like a curious thing.
Through your mind.
In my mind, trying to figure it all out. Like, if UFOs actually are real, then what does this say about all of the history that I thought I knew? What does this say about American history, American military history? There's this huge gap. So that was my obsessive phase of studying UFOs. And I think that doesn't last forever. I'm still very into it. It's more like my job now, but it's a job that I love. So I do it during the daytime. At night, I will tell you, I almost normally will shut down. Like, that's different from the old days. Like, in the early years, I would research this until 2, 3 in the morning every night.
Were you constantly yearning for answers, or have you come to a place where you are kind of accepting that you can't find the answers?
Yeah, well, both. I'll never stop exploring and trying to learn and get answers. But I've become, one of my favorite phrases and one of my favorite books in the world is called Comfortable with Uncertainty. It's a great Zen book. And if there's any philosophy, really, that's gotten me through the last decade, it's been Zen. To the extent that it's all about you accept reality as it is. And, don't spin out into fantasy about the past or about the future so much, because when you do that, one thing you're not doing is living in the moment, the beautiful, magical, miraculous moment that you have right now, which is what we have right this minute. That's what we've got. We don't have the future. We don't have the past. So I try to keep myself focused in that way. And the other thing is I try to be comfortable with uncertainty in the sense that, I realize, okay, I have one brain, and there's this whole big reality. And I try my best to understand and to grasp everything, but I hope actually that there will always be mysteries. My goodness, who would want a world where there is no mystery? So I don't have a need. I've never been like that. I've never really had a strong psychological need to have certainty. I'm pretty cool with things being kind of open.
So what is the UFO story that has amazed you the most? Maybe in terms of abductions, or that really you just feel like, wow, that's a big one.
Oh wow. God. I was asked that question.
Give me the juicy stuff.
Yeah, right. I was once asked that question on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and he said in that wonderful way of his, Richard, what's the greatest UFO story in your opinion? And I gave him one that's it's almost so well known that it's a cliche, and I won't recount it here. I'll just mention it's the 1976 Iranian jet fighter incident, and it's a hell of a story. Okay. It involves 2 F-4 Iranian jet pilots in a row trying to encounter this bright object over the city of Tehran, and both of them at a range of about 25 miles got all of their electronics and communication systems going offline. In one case, the pilot was about to fire a missile, and just as he was about to do that, it all went offline. And with one of the pilots, this large object detached a smaller object that went at his plane. Whoa. So he turns really tight to get away. Who wouldn't? And the object turned inside his own arc and then rejoined the original craft. And all of this was in a 3-page typed single space memo that went to the President of the United States, it went to the Director of the CIA, and it went to the National Security Advisor. In other words, it went to President Gerald Ford, CIA Director George Herbert Walker Bush, and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger. Not a bad distribution list. So it was an amazing story that has no genuine explanation, no conventional explanation. But there's a couple that I've been told that are just,
Bring it on.
Yeah, well, I've got them in this new book, so I'll just mention two of them. These both deal with human-looking beings. Now, they're not associated with UFOs per se, but they're crazy, and they're very compatible with each other. So one was told to me by a woman. I was in Pennsylvania at a conference, and a couple of years ago, a woman in her late 50s and her husband are chatting with me, and they're very nice people. And I'm afraid, I wonder if I told you this in our last interview. I'm afraid that I
think
did.
you maybe did.
Yeah, so I'll just give the short version, okay? She's in church. She's a teenager, and she's with her mother, and she sees these two people. They're blonde. They're beautiful, male, female. They're dressed like supermodels, and she's a teenager, and she's obsessed with them. And then she hears their thoughts. She hears them thinking. And she hears one of them thinking to the other, the girl can hear us. That was the thought. And she's like, oh, my God. So they, at the end of church, they get out, and she follows them. She's running after them, and she sees them. She goes over a hill, and they're walking across a field. And then she stops because she sees another character who's this very tall man in a black suit, black hat. And she said, he looks like the character Lurch from the television show The Addams Family. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw that in Norway, but in America it was kind of a big show. He's this tall, kind of creepy-looking guy. And she was afraid of him, and she stopped. So these two people go to him, and they walk around into this wooded area. He turns around and goes. Kind of crazy. I spoke to a retired U.S. colonel who has a PhD, who told me almost an exactly the same type of story, where he's in a Las Vegas casino. Did I tell you this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't think I did. He's in a Las Vegas casino with his wife and a friend of theirs who he said was like this psychic friend, a woman. And the three of them are just having fun in a Vegas casino. And the friend grabs his arm and says, stop. Don't go. And they look and they see this woman, this stunningly beautiful blonde woman, apparently. Now it's Las Vegas, and there's beautiful people everywhere. But apparently this was somehow different. And the psychic said to the colonel, she's not human. So the psychic and his wife leave. They go down an escalator down, and he stays there, and he's observing this woman, and he hears her in his head. And he's telling me this story. He says, she said to him in her mind, go about your business. You have no interest in this. Just go. And he's startled, and he's thinking, I'm going to stay and I'm going to talk. And then he sees this equally beautiful blonde man join the woman. So they're obviously a couple. And they begin to walk toward the escalator where this colonel is standing. So he's thinking, I'm going to confront them, and I'm going to talk to them somehow. Wow. But what happens is they walk by him, and he says nothing. And they get on the escalator. But then he gets behind them. And as he's going down the escalator, he said to me, he hears them in his mind again. And they're thinking back and forth. And the conversation is basically like, yes, yeah, he hears us. Yeah, big deal. Okay, well, he's not part of the program, or he's not part of the system, or something like that. Yeah, just ignore him. He'll go away. He's not important. Things like this as he's going down. When he was telling me the story, by the way, he was with his wife, and she was laughing because she said, yes, yes, yes. We were hiding behind a slot machine at the bottom of the escalator, peeking around because we were so scared. But she was laughing as she told me. Anyway, they get to the bottom of the escalator, and then the couple just walked off, and no one bothered them. And then the follow-up, and I'll feel really bad if I told you this on camera before because I'm repeating this.
You told the first one, but
okay,
not this one.
So listen, this is amazing. So he's talking to the friend who also does hypnotherapy, like hypnoregression. So they decide that she's going to regress him, the colonel, so that he can remember better what this couple was saying. That's the idea. So they all agree to do it. So a couple of days later, they go to her house in this very quiet neighborhood in, I believe, in California. So he's lying on a couch, and he's regressing, and all of a sudden, he hears this loud noise outside, like jackhammers and helicopters and construction machinery, and they're like, what is going on here? And they go out, and they see nothing. And this happens every time, and they're unable to do the regression, but they decide, no problem. I'm coming back here, he said, in a month, and maybe we can get together and do it then. So she says, fine. So a month goes by, and he calls, like a day or two before he goes there, he calls this friend, and he says, well, I'm coming out there, so can we do the regression? And she had no memory of any of this. She had no memory. He said, well, wait, don't you remember we were going to have a regression? You were going to do that. And she said, what are you talking about? He said, well, we were in the casino last month, and we had that weird experience. Don't you remember that? And she said, no, I don't remember that. So, what's going on with that? There's this, you lift up the layer of reality, you lift up the carpet, and you look underneath, and there's a lot of activity there. All of it is just under the surface. And in our polite little, mainstream society, it's like we pretend none of this is real, but this is going on. Now, I don't know what happened. I presume that someone got to this woman and they somehow managed her memory. It could be a human group. It could be a non-human group. I have no idea. I don't know who. The technology is certainly there. The U.S. military absolutely has the ability to do things to your memory, to my memory, or anyone's, and to erase, put in screen memories, and now we're learning, yes, implant false memories. I was just reading an article just the other day about unclassified research. Scientists able to give false memories to mice. They're able to do it. Now,
how? What do they do?
I didn't get all of the details in the article. I read a little bit of it. I probably should have read all of it, and I could tell you. But I think it's through a combination of chemicals and possibly electronics. But the point is, the capability is there to give false memories. And if they're talking about it now in the news, really you have to assume that in the classified world they're quite a bit further ahead in memory management.
So since the last time we spoke, have we come any farther when it comes to disclosure? Or are we moving backwards? What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I don't think we're moving backwards. I really don't. For many years I had a very kind of, I don't want to say skeptical, but a very kind of hands-off attitude about disclosure. Like, I had a lot of colleagues who were very convinced that it was going to happen, and I would always say, well, it's not going to happen this year, maybe in a couple of years. But I think that we're racing ahead in our world. I think things are actually happening. Just a few months ago, I was really fortunate to participate in something called the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure. This is organized by my friend and colleague, Stephen Bassett. It was in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club the first week of May of 2013. And a lot of those testimonies are on YouTube. People can watch them. There's one of me that has been out there on YouTube. The way it was set up was it was a mock congressional hearing. And there were 6 retired members of Congress and the Senate who were there. They presided. And 40 experts, researchers, and witnesses basically gave their testimony all week long, 5 days. And I really think that there were a number of people who were criticizing this in the build-up to it, and I really think they were wrong about this. This is a good idea. It's a good thing, and it's left a legacy now. For years to come, when there are new people getting involved in this topic, they're going to see this. And what they're going to see is former Canadian Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, very eloquently and intelligently talk about his perspective on this phenomenon. And they're going to see a lot of other very thoughtful ex-military people talk about their experience. And they're going to hear researchers who've spent their lives studying this talk about, what they've learned. And all of this was so well done. So it's a permanent legacy. I really feel it will have a ripple effect for many years to come, and I think it'll all be very positive. In the larger sense, when we look about disclosure, we're really talking about the end of secrecy, because that's a little bit different from disclosure, actually. Here's why. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think of disclosure as the moment in which the president, like the president of the United States, let's say, has a press conference and tells the truth about ETs or interdimensionals or UFOs or whatever it is. But I don't really see it that way. What I think is going to happen is that it's going to be forced from below, that is from us, the people. I mean, here we are. You live in Norway, you're in New York City, but you've got this great YouTube channel, and you're able to get interviews with people from around the world, sometimes through Skype. This couldn't have been possible even 10 years ago. All right, but it's possible now. So we're in a dramatic transformation in our whole civilization, where we are able to communicate in ways that we could not have dreamed of just even a few years ago. So everything's speeding up. Our ability to communicate, our ability to extract information is all speeding up. I don't know what the moment's going to be, like what's going to cause it. I think it could be a leak. Right now we're dealing with leaks, dealing with America's NSA, the National Security Agency. That's now. What will be next year? Will it be leaks about UFOs? Maybe. Why not? There's definitely, in my opinion, there's UFO data that's waiting to be leaked out. Maybe that'll happen. The day is going to come when, because of the nature of change in our world, something big is going to happen. I've been saying this for a few years, and it hasn't happened. Okay, I admit that. But I think it will happen. And it could be 10 years. It could be 20 years. I don't think it's going to be more than 20. Before that happens, we're going to have an age of intelligent computers where they'll be able to talk to us and sound pretty human, except they won't need to sleep. And they'll be able to think constantly. I mean, really, it's going to happen. And there's going to be much more that we can't even imagine. So something's going to force us out. So that'll force an announcement, but that doesn't mean that the disclosure will be truthful or complete. Because, think about it, really. Let's say you're the president of the United States. So you're that guy or you're that woman. And the secret now, it's out there, and now you have to say something, right? So what are you going to say? First of all, you may not really know everything. You're going to have to find out from the classified community, the black budget world. What if they don't really tell you everything? After all, presidents come and go. They're temporary players. So first of all, you have to get the information from that community. You have to trust that they're giving you the truth. But then let's say you learn this. How much can you really tell the world without things really spiraling out of control? There's a lot of delicate issues here with disclosure. One simple political one is a lot of angry people at being lied to for an entire human lifetime. And wanting to know, well, what technology have you been hiding? Do you have free energy? How come we can't use it? What does that say about the petroleum industry? There's a real interesting question. And then there's going to be lawsuits and more lawsuits. For a whole range of things having to do with defense contractors who may have had access to ET technology, unfair trade practice. It sounds simple, but it's to people who will have class action lawsuits over because they believe they've been abducted and the government made them believe that this is all nonsense and they went through psychological trauma for years as a result of this. And then there'll just be, we've Occupy Wall Street. Well, how about Occupy Area 51? Occupy Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This will happen. So a president in disclosing is going to want to be very careful and is going to want to parse out the information very sparingly. The question is, will that be possible? So disclosure is going to be the beginning, not the end. It's the beginning of a new phase for the fight over truth. And we can't just assume that, oh, here's disclosure, here comes happy utopia, everyone now one big party. May not be that way. And then you'll have a lot of frightened people asking, who are these other beings? Do we have anything to be worried about? This is a legitimate question. Of course people want to know. And what if you, the president, don't really know the answer to that? What if you don't know? So you don't know how to calm the public down. This is a nightmare issue. But the thing is, all right, we're never, ever as a society going to be ready for disclosure. We're never going to ever be ready. But it's irrelevant. It's going to happen anyway. As I sometimes think, no parent is ever ready for their first child. But guess what? They come anyway, and then you have to scramble and deal with it. And this is going to be a really messy child. So disclosure is going to be a messy situation. But it's going to happen. We won't be ready for it. But you know what? I think people are resilient. We'll find a way. We'll deal with the challenge. And it might take 20 years. It might take 50 years. Really, it could take a long time for all of the issues to work themselves out. But I think we'll deal with it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know how long we went, but it was fun.
Is there anything you want to say at the end?
Yeah, actually, a couple of other things that I'm excited about. In this last year, I've kind of formulated. I have a publishing company, so I publish books. I publish my books, and I publish books by other great writers. I'm just so excited and happy and proud to be associated with these. So my old company was called Keyhole Publishing. It's called Richard Dolan Press now, just Richard Dolan Press. And you can go to richarddolanpress.com. It features a lot of my own work there, and articles and interviews and things like that I've done. But it also features work by the authors that I publish. And as of right now, I've just in the last month, I published 3 books by other authors, and all of them are just wonderful. One is a novel by the British researcher Philip Mantle called Once Upon a Missing Time, and it's about the abduction phenomenon. And it's in particular about the trauma and difficulties experienced by a family that had 3 hours of missing time. And it's really well put together, and it's based on his actual research. And then a book by the 85-year-old brilliant PhD friend of mine, Dr. Robert Wood, called Alien Viruses. And Bob Wood is just an amazing human being. He helps to run the website majesticdocuments.com. This is all a lot of leaked and controversial documents that are sometimes disputed, but I personally think a number of these are legitimate. Anyway, Bob has done an analysis of some of them, and he deals with, the book is called Alien Viruses. And the subtitle is UFOs, MJ-12, and Biowarfare. And what he really argues is that the biowarfare industry in the world owes something to the study of alien biology. And it's a fascinating book. One of his chapters deals with the mysterious deaths of the microbiologists and virologists from about 10 years ago. And there were quite a few of these. And he deals with that, and he deals with many, many other fascinating things. And then a book just earlier in the month, earlier this spring, I published the first ever book-length treatment of triangular UFOs.
And what is that?
And the book is called Triangular UFOs, An Estimate of the Situation by David Marler. One of the largest types of UFOs that people see are perfect triangles. There's a lot of them. But no one's ever really written a book about it until David has done it. And it's a wonderful book. He is a real, true researcher. He has an enormous collection of newspaper articles going way, 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 way back. And one thing he points out is that these triangles, they're not recent. Like a lot of people argue that they're a secret project being manufactured by the U.S. military. Well, that may be true, but not all of them, because some of them go back to the 1940s and earlier, and these are amazing reports. So it's a great book. And I have a very good book by Grant Cameron, a Canadian researcher, dealing with leaked information out of Area 51. That's also, all of this is at my website, richarddolanpress.com. Hey, go check it out. It's a happening site. And then my own book will be out, UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, I think before the summer's out. And one more book I'll just mention. I know this sounds like a long commercial from my site. I'm sorry, okay? But I'm on camera. I might as well do this.
It's okay.
A book called Admissible by my friend and colleague Chase Kletsky. And this will be out. It'll probably be out in the fall. It's the manual to investigate UFOs, ghosts, if you're into ghost hunting, or even strange creatures like Bigfoot. Chase has investigated all of those things. She's done that, and she's a good investigator. And really what she's done is she's put together a manual, like how to. How do you get started? How do you do this responsibly? How do you keep proper records? Rather than be like a joke of an investigator, how do you step it up and actually be professional in doing this? And it's well written. I'm actually working on the edits with her, so we're really making it polished and nice. And that'll be out hopefully end of the summer, early fall. I don't want to wait too much longer on that book. So there's a lot going on, and I have other authors. They contact me all the time. They want me to publish their books. I'm like, fine, okay. If it's good, I'll do it.
Great. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best with your book and your publishing company.
Oh, thank you.
And maybe I'll see you again for another interview in
Certainly.
Oslo or in Europe. We'll see.
You never know. Yeah, thank you for the interview. It was really fun, Jannecke.
And thank you so much for watching, guys, and much light from New York City. Bye-bye.